Welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. Today we're going to talk about Kabbalah. What is Kabbalah? We're going to get into all of my findings. I won't give you the whole scope. I'm actually building a Kabbalah course for my online school. That's going to take you from beginning to end. This is more trying to whet the beak and trying to have people understand what Kabbalah is from a practical standpoint, as well as probably give you guys a lot of secrets that you did not know before. There's a lot of secrets that have to deal with Kabbalah. I'm actually really excited about this because Kabbalah gets a really hard rap. Unfortunately today, because it's tied to Jewish mysticism and we have a lot of stuff going on politically, people tend to look at this very negatively. But if you're a Christian, if you follow Christ or Buddha or any of those divine leaders, in a sense, then this is something that's extremely important, and I highly advise that you at least learn a little bit about it. Why? Because it is a interconnected way to understand reality. It is a really well-devised system, even if it is incomplete. I'm going to talk about that today. And it can be used practically in many, 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 many ways. It's a very cool way, in my opinion, to see reality in a much deeper sense. A lot of people feel it's demonic or it's scary, potentially, but that's based on how you use it. It's like a weapon. If you use it properly versus improperly, right? And that's essentially what Kabbalah is. It could be something that is very illuminating to the soul, or it could be something that really hinders the progression and the advancement of the soul, because you can get lost and you can get stuck in Kabbalah. So the first and foremost thing, what is Kabbalah? It is an esoteric method and school of thought in Jewish mysticism. Very simple, straightforward. It's essentially a blueprint, okay? That's what I really want you to wrap your head around. Kabbalah is a blueprint, and the blueprint essentially goes, you're at the bottom here, okay, and God is at the top. We came down from heaven and in order to live this human experience, and we must ascend going up the same pathway as we came down. There's a lot of different pathways you can take. In fact, there is, if I'm not mistaken, roughly 22 pathways, but this gets very complicated, because there's actually multiple different systems of Kabbalah, one of which would be the Greek system known as the Tree of Porphyry. Now, what you have to understand is there's a lot of different historical speculative perspectives on Kabbalah. Many people really peddle and promote and push the idea that Kabbalah really started in the 13th century or in the French European area. That is not true. That is what the historical data shows. That is this version of Kabbalah. Kabbalah as a concept, as a blueprint, if you go and you ask real Jewish mystics, like I have, they will tell you that Kabbalah has been around since Moshe, since Moses, okay? And Moses' 10 Commandments were the initiation of the start of Kabbalistic literature. Most of the reason why they say it got popularized was because this major design got popularized around that time. But Kabbalah as a concept outside of the design, even included with the design, as we can see by the Greek Tree of Porphyry, the counterpart to the Kabbalah is known as the Qliphoth, which is the Tree of Death. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but that's not really that important. And the reason why is because it's the darker side of Kabbalah. I'm going to explain all of this stuff, but essentially, in Jewish mysticism specifically, the Kabbalah is a blueprint in order to get back to God. And the Greeks and the Egyptians and many other cultures had similar versions of their own Kabbalah. Like I mentioned, the Tree of Porphyry. You can look that up. Instead of having 10 or 11 spheres, these are called Sephiroth, which is actually where we loosely get the English word for sphere. All right, it's a loose etymological link, but Sephiroth essentially means sphere. So you can think of these as the spheres. And the spheres are influential energies. Okay, they represent different things. I'm going to talk about that today. But essentially, the most important aspects of what you need to understand about Kabbalah is this gives you such a deep understanding of the basically quantum mechanics. It gives you a deep understanding of life. and how so many ancient cultures saw the world when you study it and you realize like all the different parts of it. And it is quite foundational. Okay, as I mentioned, the Greeks, the word klipoth or kelipot is the word that is very heavily associated in Greek to the Hebraic klipoth, because it is speculated that the tree of death, which came after the tree of life, this is the Kabbalistic tree of life. The tree of death just looks like inverted. Okay, it's essentially inverted like this. And a lot of the time it is connected to this bottom part, Malkuth, which essentially represents the earth in many ways. But there's a lot of secrets here. Okay, there's a lot of secrets. Most of the time, Thaumiel here at the top connects to Malkuth here at the bottom, and these are reflections of each other. It's essentially the shadow of the Kabbalah. So in very simple terms, think of one as the pathway of the angels, and one is the pathway of the demons. That is essentially a psychological scripted blueprint that the Jewish faith created in order to explain reality. Okay, this isn't can you use stuff like this, or has this stuff been used in things like angelic or demonic rituals? Absolutely, but that's more fanaticism. Okay, it's more when they're using these as sigils to perform rituals over the last few hundred to thousands of years. Anytime anything is used like that, they absolutely do have their own energy or power, but it's more so, again, just like a physical representation of how people are using sigils in rituals in order to promote the consciousness to get the manifestation of whatever they're trying to do. So in other words, these do hold power, but it's up to us and our free will and our choice of what we do with it. I highly, highly do not recommend looking too much into the klipoth. Okay, it's not necessary. So many people are like, oh, I want to do shadow work and I want to heal myself and study this. You don't really even need to study the Kabbalah. It's really not like, it's a very advanced mechanism. Okay, so unless you're really ready to go into that theological, ritualistic, like just understanding all the aspects of this, it's really not necessary to live a good, fulfilled life. I'm going to break it down today for you so that you never really have to look into this stuff ever again if you so choose. But the major thing about Kabbalah, and I really love this photo specifically because it's got a lot of ancient symbolism, right? It's even got the swastika and the swastika, which are two separate, things. And of course, it's the Nazi symbol and blah, blah, blah. But that's not, of course, where it originated from. And I think people are educated enough now to know that. But the occult symbolism here is just beautiful. The Kabbalah maps to the human body perfectly. Even though, again, as I mentioned, and I'm going to showcase to you today how it's incomplete. But the Kabbalah is incomplete. This being incomplete has been the number one most biggest issue in the Jewish faith, because this is why they don't recognize Christ as their Messiah. This is why they peddle and they push for different things, because they are still trying to complete a system which is already complete. And the problem is that they can't wrap their heads around specific things because they've got way too analytical. They've gotten way too much information now, and they can't discern what's accurate and what's not accurate. So there is a completed version of the Kabbalah. Not a lot of people know it. I'm going to add that into my online school when I build this course out over the next few weeks. But if you take a look at it, you can actually figure it out pretty easily. I'm not going to showcase it because, if I do, then people are going to know. But there's a lot of systems that actually talk about completing the Kabbalah, so to speak. There are not 11, but there are actually 12, potentially 13 Sephiroth. And in fact, the system that I use has 13, because any completed system has to have 12 or 13 in order for it to be like fully workable, right? You got to think about the 12 cranial nerves, where we have an extra one. There is actually a 13th cranial nerve, but nobody really talks about it because it doesn't do the same functionality. So there's kind of 13. Some even speculate 14. we have 12 ribs, and then you also have the central pillar, which acts almost like its own rib, harmonizing the rest of the ribs together. That's kind of like the 13th rib. So you've got a system of 12, which ultimately becomes 13 anyway, and that is essentially what the issue with the current Kabbalah is. Now, the whole point, what's even the whole point of studying this, you know, because there's all these different books that you can find by rabbis where they're talking about trying to complete the Kabbalah, right? That's like a big mission of the Jewish faith. And furthermore, it's also been used very heavily in Japanese media, okay? Specifically Japanese, not really anywhere else, not even in like Israeli media, right? Like you would think, right? But no, the Japanese are the esoteric geniuses of our time, and they just draw like little girls shooting out magical powers and shit. It's kind of weird, but basically in anime, specifically in very esoteric anime such as Full Metal Alchemist, you can see the Kabbalah here is on this door. This door is essentially in like a spiritual realm that this character is like filtering through, and he sees the Kabbalah on this door, which connects into, I guess you could say, the afterlife. Let's just put it very simply that way. If you've seen the show, then you know all about this, so I don't want to spoil anything. But essentially, you know, this kid is he's performing alchemical magic in a ritual, and he has this door appear, and it's got the entire. This is actually one version. It's a medieval version of the Kabbalah, which a lot of anime likes to use. There's another show called Neon Genesis Evangelion, which has that same Kabbalah in their opening title screen. Here's another image of the guy standing in front of the door. He's talking with this like figure. We'll just put it that way. And in that Neon Genesis show, this is a different show now. I put these a little bit out of order. In that Neon Genesis show, at one point, again, I don't want to spoil a lot of things in case you want to go watch them. This is actually the Tree of Death. You can see it's upside down because one character in this part of the show is being quote unquote sacrificed, I guess you could say. So they actually showcase, you can see the words and the letters are actually upside down because it's showing the Tree of Death, not the Tree of Life, because this character is getting sacrificed, which is very strange. You know, this is Japanese culture. Why are they showing Hebraic mysticism, right, in their shows? It has to do with the fact, this is from a video game, actually, as well, Shin Megami Tensei, I'm pretty sure. And that is one of the precursor video games in Japan that inspired Pokemon, by the way. So Pokemon with all their little Pokemon powers, and they're all little animals. They're all scattered remnants of God. They even have a god called Arceus, which is the same Arceus from Paracelsus, the alchemist, in the Pokemon universe, okay? So you got all the little Pokemon, they've all got little powers, and they're going around doing different things. They're like little archetypes, okay? So you have to understand that even Hebrew mysticism heavily influenced other cultures, including the Japanese culture, so much so to the point where you could loosely connect the Kabbalah to Pokemon, which is the #1 media brand in the world. Okay, so loose connection, it's still there, all right? It's still there. In fact, they just came out with a game called Legends ZA, and that whole game, it literally came out like 2 weeks ago, and that whole game has to do with human evolution, and it's essentially about a serpent entwined around a tree, okay, which is actually a very synonymous Kabbalistic pattern. You can find the serpent path with having to do with the Kabbalah. It's called the fulfillment of the Mashach. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But there's also a game series I neglected to mention in one of my previous videos that I really like. It's called the Persona game series, where basically you summon egregores to fight for you. It's very similar to Pokemon as well, very popularized, but they also use Kabbalah and Persona and shadows and like these psychological and mystical explanations for things, okay? But going back to this, so Pokemon, let me show you what I'm talking about. Pokemon Legends ZA. Even the logo, okay? You see, here's the Pokemon, right? Oh, how happy, right? It's just cute little animals. It's not. This Z, it represents a Pokemon that's a snake, and the A represents this big tower that's in the back there, not to spoil it, essentially, because I looked up a lot of the plot for this. But basically, it's the serpent wrapped around the tree. And that's the symbolism for this game that came out 2 weeks ago. I can just like that, you start to see the imagery everywhere. And this Pokemon, which represents the snake, has to do with human evolution. Okay, so again, they use this, and look, they got a little cute little pig and a cute little crocodile and whatever the hell this thing is. It's just a very simple way to to manipulate esoteric frameworks that are seated within our collective unconscious. That is why Pokemon became the #1 media franchise in the world. They are utilizing energy that already pre-exists, egregores. They are tapping into egregores of manifestation. Let me talk a little bit about this. This is the serpent on the tree. Okay, this is your spinal column with your nerves wrapped around the spine. All right, it's the serpent trying desperately to get up to the highest peak. This is called the fulfillment of the Mashak. All right, and Mashak is very closely related to the word Mashiach. Okay, so this is really the fulfillment of the Mashiach. This is the fulfillment of the anointment process of the Kabbalah. Okay, and what that means is when we came down from heaven, we went down into the left, down into the left, down into the left, down into the left. But when we want to ascend, we go up and to the right, up and to the right, up and to the right. So in other words, when you go down into the left, you spiral downward in existence, which basically, left-hand path means choosing severity. Okay, so this is the left pillar, which represents severity in the Kabbalah. The right pillar represents mercy, and the middle pillar represents balance between those two concepts. Okay, so there's 3 pillars, right? The pillar on the left and the pillar on the right are also Jachem and Boaz, okay, from the biblical narrative of King Solomon. King Solomon would be the middle pillar, right? So there's a lot of analogies here. This is also a trinity, right? This is also your spine with your left and your right hand sides, okay? So everything in Kabbalah has to do with, again, quantum mechanics on how everything is created. When you go up and to the right, you're choosing mercy over severity. When we came down from heaven and as our souls incarnated, which is a big thing in Jewish mysticism, basically we came down as spiritual form to learn severity, to learn extremes, to learn polarity, okay? And then as we ascend, we learn unity. So that's like a big key secret there. There's many key secrets when it comes to Kabbalah. Many key secrets. One of my favorites is the shining mirror. Again, you can go look for that in my school when I post it. But the shining mirror is a big part of Kabbalah too. So each one of these Sephiroth stands for something different. Let me go back to the one with 11 on it so you can visualize. Down here, Malkuth has to deal with the physical manifestation, okay? Oftentimes it's shown as the earth, and Yesod up here is normally shown as the moon. That's where the shining mirror comes in. The moon has 2 phases. So here's the sun, Tiferet, right here, Tiferet. When Tiferet is there and the moon is there, this creates a new moon. But if you put the earth as Yesod and you put the moon as Malkuth, then it becomes the shining mirror and the moon becomes full. And you start to understand that the moon is really the center point for human evolution, i.e. inner alchemy, the sacred secretion. Furthermore, if you study the King Solomon's tale, he has to he conquers 71 demons, but he can't conquer the 72nd, which is Ashmedai, which represents Ashmedai is actually way down here in the tree of death, but he's essentially the king of the demons, and he represents lust. And so King Solomon can't defeat him. There's like a whole battle that ensues. He wanders the desert, blah blah blah. Long story short, in order to defeat him, he has to seek the help from the 3rd infantryman called Benaiah. Benaiah has to deal with Tiferet or Da'ath a lot of the time. He's in this center point. Because Benaiah, very similar to Berea, essentially means the heart. Okay, so King Solomon, which is the brain, Sol Olman, sun and moon, the brain asks the heart for assistance in order to conquer the demon on the bottom, which would be Ashmedai, which would essentially be the gut genital microbiome or the demiurge. Solomon gets the help of Benaiah, and Benaiah uses something called the shamir. The shamir to Jewish mysticism is the inner alchemical process. Okay, it's a little worm. He uses the power of the little cell or the little worm in order to awaken his soul and conquer death. And he binds the demon to the temple, the first temple that they built. So this is a big deal of the story. The whole point of the story is that through spirituality through the power of the shamir, which is again a little micro serpent. Okay, it's a tiny little cell. Jesus says, "I am but a worm." There's a lot of history here as to what this is. This is their story of inner alchemy. Now, the Kabbalah also has a very pristine history. I'm going to get back into the Sephiroth in a second, but it has a very pristine history. There was a guy named Isaac Luria. He really popularized his version and his model of Kabbalistic ritualism and insight. He was pretty much a neutral figure. A lot of people say he was a bad guy and that he did a lot of dark things. It could potentially be true. However, what's worse is what he did by popularizing this and influencing other people, such as Jacob Frank, or Shabtai Zevi, which are two different. Shabtai Zevi came first, and then Jacob Frank came later. But they're two separate Jewish prophets, I guess you could say, that popped up in the mid 15th, 16th, 17th centuries. And they had a huge, massive amount of influence on converting a lot of people in the Jewish faith to a much more communistic, Zionistic political regime, where they studied the tree of death, and they studied manipulation tactics, and they studied how to subvert other cultures. And that's really a big root of where Kabbalah gets a bad rap from. However, the whole purpose of it is for us to get back to God, right? So it's just understanding these concepts. What are the concepts? Well, Malkuth at the bottom here, which most of the time represents the earth, has to deal with earthly manifestation, energy, rest, relaxation, physical awareness, groundedness, and embodiment. When you go up to Yesod, which generally represents the moon or the lunar influences, and keep in mind, this is the earth. It represents the earthly elements. This is the moon. It represents the elements that we associate with the moon. But they're also, reflections of different archangels. They're also reflections of different egregoric concepts, different spiritual energies, and then there's also the pathways that interlink them, which are all reflective of different tarot cards or different Hebrew letters, because there's 22 pathways, there's 22 major arcana tarot cards, and there's 22 Hebrew letters in the alphabet. This is why things get sticky, because the Hebraic faith does not want to change. They don't want to evolve. When you have 22 letters, then the Greeks adopted their Hebraic language, and they created the 24 letters, because they said, well, it's not 11 doubled, it's 12 doubled, for a total of 24. But then Jesus came, and the English language, the angels language, the English, is 13 doubled, because Jesus was number 13. Now we have 26 letters, and that's how the evolution of language really occurred. Okay, so at least from a Western sense. All right, so Yesod is the bridge of manifestation. It represents foundation. Okay, it represents subconscious, the subconscious mind, which the moon often represents anyway, dreams, sexuality, etc. Because this also is where the genital region of the body is as well. The moon, the lunar organ, rules over the genitals. It rules over the penis and the vagina. It rules over the menstrual and ovulatory cycles of the woman, and it rules over the inner alchemical cycle of the man. Okay, so this is also a very big deal. Hod, which is over here, this is glory, essentially, and it has to deal with the mind, communication, analytics, reason, language, symbolism, etc. This is representative of the planet Mercury, I'm pretty sure. Mercury, and then this one over here, Nezak, is Venus. So Venus is desire, okay, so it has to do with endurance, passion, desires, emotional intelligence, beauty, love of beauty, specifically personal charisma, etc. Then you go up to Tiferet, which represents the sun, and the sun is the center of the tree. It's the heart of the entire system, the mediating center, ego transcendence, spiritual heart, and spiritual integration. Then you go up to Gabora. Gabora is Mars. That has to do with the real root of severity. Okay, so severity, strength, power, judgment, right? Now keep in mind, remember, this is the severity and this is the mercy, right? You can see this is the negative and this is the positive, but you need both. Because everybody, this is the trap of spiritualism. Everybody thinks that it's about this side. Everybody thinks, oh no, it's love and light and blah 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 blah. Yeah, and then these guys come and destroy you. These guys have always come and destroyed these guys. Always. There's really not, you can't find a lot of times where these guys over here on the positive side were able to go and address their big concerns with the guys on the left-hand side. And win through brute force. Okay, it's normally the people on the right-hand path create a society, Library of Alexandria. The people on the left-hand path destroy it for no reason, for power, for control, for domination. And this is why people lose in the spiritual game, because you have to adopt parts of severity in order to awaken the middle path. You need to stand your ground. You need to learn how to defend yourself and fight. All right, it's a big thing in martial arts. Like, martial arts talks about it all the time. It's like, well, what the hell would be the point of studying martial arts if we just like are basically pussies about it and we don't ever use it? It's okay to be excessively violent if you're using it in self-defense of yourself or somebody that you love. If somebody is coming at you full force for to kill you, self-defense has to be the middle path. It's not about, oh, but we can't hurt people and blah, blah. That's not spirituality. That is absolutely not spirituality. That's not why God created this world of dualities. Okay, it's context. The middle path is about context and balance. If somebody's coming at you with brute evil and they want to destroy the world, you've got to destroy them back. That's and that's for justice. For, you know, it's not for glory, it's for justice, it's for balancing. Right, so Gabora over here, which is actually a big root in like anger and frustration. This has to do with the liver most of the time. That has to deal with strength, power, judgment, willpower. Okay, which is a good thing, right? Willpower is a good thing. Moral strength and the ability to say no. Then over here you have Kesed, which is true mercy, right? So this is the pathway of severity. This is the pathway of mercy. These two guys are the big creators of those pathways. I'm going to explain why. It's because there's a cutoff here. This is generally where, if you map this to the whole body, this is where the neck is, but also the neck is, like this is also the whole head, and the neck is also the breaking point between the tree of life versus the tree of death. So it's multi-layered, which I'm going to get into in a second as well. But Kesed, which is Jupiter, trust, grace, optimism, unconditional love, divine benevolence, generosity, faith, abundance. Then you cross into Da'ath here. Okay, Da'ath, different interpretations, right? This one says Sirius. I don't really know about that. Generally, I see this one as Pluto. You know, it's knowledge, right? It's knowledge through hard experience. So this is knowledge, not wisdom. Wisdom is different. We're going to talk about wisdom in a second. In order to cross the abyss, you see this line here says the abyss. In order to transcend from the body into the mind, you have to master knowledge. Okay, that means basically data. That's where data comes from, Da'ath. Okay, so you have to master the data. You have to understand the information of the world. It's about seeking information. And when you're a seeker of information, which Da'ath has to represent knowledge, gnosis, integration, inner knowing. Okay, it's not really an outer knowing. It's an inner knowing. Enlightenment through lived experiences. The abyss that must be crossed by the adept. Illumination that bridges human and divine awareness. It's not actually considered a true Sephiroth in many systems, but it is. It actually really is, and it's necessary. Once you cross up into that, you get into Bina. Bina is Saturn, and that has to deal with understanding, structure, formation, reason, discernment, and comprehension. Okay? Then you go over here into Chokmah. All right? Chokmah, most of the time, you know, it says the zodiac here. That's not necessarily wrong, but this is mostly having to deal with Neptune, and then Kether has to deal with Uranus, or the premium mobile, which basically means like the thing that spins the zodiac. It's the energy, the source of all things. But you know, I like to think of Da'ath as Pluto. It's the gateway of death and transformation. Then you get to Saturn, and then you get to Bina, then Chokmah, and then Kether. Okay, because that's the, you know, you go up and to the right, right? So Chokmah is right here. This is a lot of the time the divine Sophia, the mother, whereas Bina over here is the demiurge most of the time. This is your trinity in form. Okay, so and then Kether would be God. So then you have intuition, insight, idea before formation, wisdom, and pure force. And then finally Kether at the very top, the crown, the divine will, the source of all things, the higher self, the spark of divine consciousness. So again, you're going from the earthly realm up into the spiritual realm. That's just the basics. I mean, that's just the basics. And of course, each pathway is guarded by a tarot card. So you have to adopt and fully awaken and understand that tarot card in order to progress through the evolution of the mechanism in order to fulfill the mashak. And that's why the snake is going up and to the right, and it's all, superseded in here. So when you get into the depths of Kabbalah, when you get into the even deeper aspects of Kabbalah, then you're talking multidimensional Kabbalistic theories. Multidimensional Kabbalah is where the Kabbalahs are all stacked on top of each other. And they also have concepts within that. For example, the four worlds. Okay, the four worlds would be the genital and tailbone, the gut, the heart, and the mind. All right, those would be the four worlds. And they have to deal with Atziluth, Berea, Yetzirah, and Asiya. We live in the world of action, Asiya. Okay, so most of the time, if you want to make money, all you got to do is work. But then you get into the world of Yetzirah, which is about idea transformation and formation. It's about, and you can see Malkuth, Yisad, Hod, Nezak, Tiferet, Gevurah, Chesed, Bina, Chokmah, Da'at, and Kether. You can see that this is also in like extra particularly extrapolated so that it's dragged out in this sense. You can also put this exact same Kabbalah on top of a person. And it's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, 18 plus 11 is what, 29? So, there's even probably more than this, because there is additional ones. There's probably an additional 3 that creates a system of 33. Lots of people will, over many hundreds of centuries, lots of people have created their own forms of Kabbalah. So don't be dissuaded, okay? I really want to put this out there. I get this a lot. Somebody comes to me and says, hey, check this out. I've got this really super special, awesome thing that you've probably never seen before. And then they send me some PDFs or something, or some book or whatever. And it's basically just talking about Kabbalistic literature or what have you. And they'll even have images, and they'll say, hey, look, this is the real completed Kabbalah. You have to understand that people, even Pokemon, are using this because this is a subconscious, subliminal truth. Okay, this is like a true form of reality, and it's been mapped out physically. It has an egregoric attachment because of the depth of esoteric spiritualism that's been placed onto this, and people will just use these symbols and these diagrams to manipulate you into believing their cult BS. Let me make this perfectly clear, okay? If I'm trying to say this very nicely, okay? If you think you have answers and anything has to do with extra interdimensional entities or aliens or anything like that, I would highly advise you touch grass, okay? And I mean that. It's not about connecting into the egregores of manifestation, the egregores that are superseding higher than you, okay? You can tap into anything. All right, these are all energetic concepts. Yes, they're angels. Yes, they're aliens. Yes, they're all those things because we create them in our own mind. All right, Archangel Michael. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Archangel Michael is very much so associated with this one right here. Hod. Right? Is that say Michael? Let me see. I can't even see it. I can't even read it. But Gabriel. Okay, Gabriel's associated with Esad. Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel, is the one that came and told Mother Mary she was pregnant. All right? The moon, the lunar force, okay? The lunar energy, which rules over the sacred secretion cycle, which rules over inner alchemy, which told Mary she was pregnant, okay? These are way deeper than you think, but these are just energy manifestations. Gabriel is just a name that was given to the concept, the egregore concept of lunar energy. So it's not that it's bad necessarily to pray or ask for, help or assistance or whatever from these things. But now what we've done is we've created this sci-fi fantasy hocus pocus, okay, where this has been the same type of system. It's just now being extrapolated and backwards engineered, reconditioned, and then sold in a pretty package of people claiming it's aliens. Okay, it's just energy, guys. It's just energy. And anybody who's trying to get you to tap into something that's outside of yourself is not good for you. What I'm trying to teach you is how to go within. All right, you got to go within. If you've got a system and it works for you, great. Don't listen to me. All right, I do not want to take anybody away from their spiritual journey. But do you know how many people? I wrote a master's thesis on spiritual psychosis. I know all about it. That's why I make these videos. I don't want people to fall into those categories. It's way more grounded than you think it is. You are not some chosen one. You are not some crazy wackadoo. We're all the chosen ones, okay? If you're choosing to do the hard work, put your faith forward, and basically, do whatever. Like, there's no spectrum of whatever. Like, you could go work at a soup kitchen and give love and appreciation to the homeless, and that is doing just as much as what I do or what anybody else in the spiritual community who's actually doing work does. Okay, it's not as grandiose as like, oh, now I gotta go take mushrooms and sit in a forest and meditate all day so I can talk with aliens and they can give me all the plans on what I'm supposed to do with my life. You're going to lose yourself. Like, really, you're going to lose yourself, and that's the freaking point of those cults. They want to bombard you with information that seems like they make it so crazy. They make it way more intense, and they come up with these convoluted stories that they could never prove, and they just regurgitate stuff that they've heard poorly, incorrectly. All right, most of the time, because I read through a lot of this stuff. I read through a lot of the psyop stuff. Okay, one of my friends actually just sent me something, but basically, you go through life, and you have to understand that everybody's trying to scam you out of being yourself. Emerald Covenant. All right, the Emerald Covenant. I read through a little bit of that because one of my friends, Ziggy Astrology, sent it to me the other day. Guys, it's literally sitting there like the lion calf of the Christ, seated in the Sirius galactic star plane. Through intense meditation and spiritual understanding, you can tap into this blah, 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 starseed stuff. Do you guys not understand these are all just cults that are trying to hijack what's already existing so they can make money off of you? All right? Shit, if you're going to give money to anybody, give it to me. All right, here's my plug. Here's Psycosmos University. I'm shameless, aren't I? 61 members, guys. I'm so excited. I love being able to help people, giving you that grounded practicality, that grounded, real, intense spirituality, but it's also grounded. This is what I have to offer. As you can see, I've got a lot of different courses, tons of them. I'm adding that Kabbalah course. If that doesn't interest you, come check out my AI tool, guys. I made an AI tool so that we can have some grounded practicality too. This too shall pass. Okay, Persian wisdom, ancient wisdom. This too shall pass. Okay, you can click this button every day. You can talk to her. She's got voice functionality. She can track your alchemical cycles here, whether you're male or female. So go check out my stuff that I've got. But guys, let's get back to it. Okay, the real root of Kabbalah is not supposed to be this wackadoo nonsensical stuff. Everybody's like, oh, I'm down here in Malkuth and I've got to transcend the 13 dimensions. It's like, okay. If that helps you visualize having your spirit or your soul transcend into a higher field of frequency, sure, don't listen to me, okay? But I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, wherever you're learning this stuff from, they're not actually getting into the root source of it. If they can't explain this stuff the way I'm explaining it, then you've got to ask why these 13-dimensional manifestors going into the Akashic records and all this other stuff, why don't they know this stuff that I'm teaching in a practical way? Why can't they explain things in a practical way? Why can't they detail and show you the secrets of these things? Not that even that I have all of the secrets, it's just I've got a good bit. All right, like Kabbalah is really intricate, and I'll give you guys some cool stuff in a second here. But Kabbalah is very intricate. All right, it's multi-layered, it's multi-fashion. It's not just a one-size-fits-all. And there's a lot that goes into this. Okay, the human body Kabbalah. Yeah, so there's a lot of systems here that you can interlay the Kabbalah on top of. Okay, so let me showcase a couple of secrets, and then we'll wrap up the video. All right, first and foremost, you see here, they put the clip off down here, okay? This is one way that you can do it. Another way is you put the whole Kabbalah up here as the head, and you put the clip off as the tree of death down here. In Kabbalistic literature, they say everything above the neck is holy, as in circular, as in spiritual, as in spiral, as in it controls all of our rhythms, versus everything down below is just to kill you, and it's to give you pain and suffering, okay? And they're very like cryptic, and they're very negative, I would say, about a lot of this stuff. But there's a number of different secret hidden things with Kabbalah. So one thing that I can showcase to you is the reality of all things. Remember, I showed you these 4 stages, these 4 worlds. They're called the 4 worlds: Atziluth, Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Asiya is earth, body. Yetzirah is water, psyche. Beriah is air, spirit. And Atziluth is fire, divinity. Okay? This is the same... So just keep the colors in mind, okay? This is the same pattern that you see everywhere. On our planet, do we not have the earth with the water on top, with the atmosphere on top of the water, and then the fires of heaven, the sun, God on the very top, right? In your face, do you not have the brain, followed by the brain and the eyes, right? Because the eyes need light to see, which would be fire. Then the nose in the middle, which breathes in the air, the spirit, right? Then you have the mouth, and the top of the mouth with the tongue deals with water, whereas the bottom jaw deals with the food, okay? Is this not in your body, where you have the brain, the fiery orb of heaven on top, followed by the lungs of the spirit, followed by the stomach, which digests, followed by the genitals and the bottom lower gut where you poop, all right? What are the genitals? What do they house? Eggs and seeds. Where do you find eggs and seeds? You can find them basically on the earth or in the water, but you don't find a lot of eggs and seeds in the sky floating. Don't talk to me about birds, because birds lay their nests in trees, and they're also air animals. So they lay their birds, they lay their eggs up high in the trees, but it's still grounded on the earth. It's still part of the earth, that you can't have floating eggs. And you definitely don't want your eggs floating up towards the sun to cook and die. However, that is also part of the system, bringing the earth, the inner alchemy, right? You bring the water and the earth up through the air and the fire, right? And does our planet not do that? Does our planet not have the earth and the water separated by the air and the fire, and the air and the water communicate? The fire evaporates the water. The air then rains the water down onto the earth. It's all interlinked. It's all interdimensional. Okay, so I just gave you some 5 minutes of mind-melting, mind-blowing Kabbalistic information. This is what it's supposed to be used for. The middle central strand of DNA, right? This is also a DNA spiral. It's a spiral. It's also the flower of life. It's also the tree of life, the tree of the knowledge of good versus good on the right hand versus evil on the left hand, and the serpent that's coiled around the tree, telling us, hey, that demiurge, that liar, he's no good. So, long story short, Kabbalah is a very intricate system, very cool. I will be coming out with a much more detailed online school university course. If you're interested, should be done in like maybe the next 2 weeks or so. So if you're interested, you could get in now, and you'll be able to take some other courses while you wait for that. My online university has about 61 members now. A lot of people are enjoying it. A lot of people are having a great time with it. I love being able to provide this assistance and be able to provide help to other people at affordable prices. You do not have to pay thousands of dollars to become spiritually educated. All right, those days are over. Now you can get it at a much more affordable price. You can join my online school for $29 a month, and then for my AI tool, it has a daily planner. It's got an astrology calculator. It's got a inner alchemy sacred secretion calculator for both men and women, because they use different systems, if you didn't know. You can purchase this. You can go to the information on the website. Oh, something went wrong. It logged me out. It's okay. It does that. I got to fix that. But anyway, you can go and check out the information on the website. When you make a 50-minute video, I guess it is gonna log you out. But anyway, Go check out the information on the website. You'll be able to get all the details. It's $15 a month for the core, and it's $33 a month for the advanced package, right? So anyway, guys, I love you very much. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day, and stay safe out there. If you need anything, feel free to drop a comment down below. You can also come work with me in a one-on-one setting if you're looking to learn more. As always, stay golden, and I love you guys. Talk to you soon. Take care.